Hi, everybody. I am Jessica Koch, and this is another interview on the Profound Professional Interview Series. I started this a couple years back in 2018 so I could feature leaders in their industry, CEOs, authors, and speakers from all over the world. And today I have the pleasure of having Gordon Bernhardt with us. He is the founder and CEO of Bernhardt Wealth and Management and the author of a book series titled Profiles in Success, an inspiration from executive leaders in the Washington, D.C. area. And I was super honored and felt incredibly special to be included in the volume 15 of that series. So thank you so much, Gordon, for having me in that. And I would love for you to share with us, I'm just so impressed with you anyway, but you've done so much to help others. And I would love to hear some of your backstory and a little bit about where you're from and your journey to get to here.
Sure. Well, again, thanks for having me, Jessica. And it was an honor to hear your story. So thanks for sharing your story with me. And, for your listeners who haven't, listened to it, or read it, I would actually encourage them to go to the Profiles in Success website and search for your name and they can find you. But it's, profilesinsuccessbook.com. So go there and read Jessica's inspirational story. Got a great story, Jessica. So
well, thank you so much. I'm going to have the link for all of those stories in the description of this YouTube video, as well as on the LinkedIn article if you're finding us there. So we'll make sure you have all the links of everything Gordon talks about. So where are you from, Gordon? I don't think I know that.
Well, I'd love to tell you that, my father had a tremendous influence on Donald Trump's father. So I inherited millions upon millions of dollars and, just was on the easy street, but I worked hard. Love to share that with you, but I wouldn't be the same person, if I had that type of story. So I grew up on a farm in Nebraska, and for the most part, everybody there, again, you worked hard, in that small community. My high school class was a class of 31. It was an agricultural area. And again, like I said, for the most part, everybody was involved in agriculture for the most part. And, again, so you didn't have the, super wealthy, obviously in that part of the country, but the values of just growing up on a farm, you learn the values.
What kind of farm was it that you grew up on?
So we had always about 100 to 150 head of cattle. I remember when I was a kid, Dad ran some sheep. I don't know why he got rid of sheep at some point, but we had some pigs at one point. But we always had wheat. Always had probably 500 to 600 of acres of wheat that were ready to be combined, and work another 500 to 60 acres that would be planted that fall and go with that rotation. So I was driving a tractor, from the time I was 5 years old. I didn't realize, even when I drove through the small town, I was violating the law by not having a driver's license.
Did you milk cows? I have to know. Did you milk cows?
Milk cows.
The old-fashioned way?
The old-fashioned way.
Oh my gosh.
So we had everything. Again, and Mom had a huge garden. You wouldn't believe. It wasn't just this small little patch of ground in the backyard. It was probably 100 yards long, 40 yards wide. So we always had
weeding to do, and
but so as a result, we were fairly self-sufficient from that perspective, because again, you could always butcher a calf and have meat, freeze it, and then you had meat for the however long that lasted. Chicken, we had chickens on the farm, and obviously Mom canned a lot, so you always had the canned goods during the winter time. But again, it was the great thing about growing up in that area. It's just that while you didn't have anything, Christmas presents typically, you got one toy, and you always got something practical. It might have been underwear or socks or a shirt or something.
Yeah.
But
Long Johns, or you always got to tell me, did you always get an orange and some nuts in your stocking? Because we always got an orange and some nuts in our stocking.
You lived the high life there, Jessica.
Oh yeah.
We didn't have stockings. So we were clearly below your level.
Oh my gosh. Did they make quilts, the women? I love that when they made quilts.
Grandma, Mom, in fact, one of my grandma grandma, when I graduated from college, she knitted, did, I don't know if it's knit or, made an Afghan for me.
Right.
Put the colors of, she I graduated from the University of Virginia, so the blue and the orange. So it wasn't the right shade of blue, and she put some white in it. But it's a beautiful Afghan. So again, it's again a special thing. But that's what again, Dad was a do-it. Dad could take apart a motor. I don't have his mindset, his skills to be able to do that and put it back together. But Dad, fixed everything, repaired everything. Again, Mom, again, made things. She would make, clothes for my sisters. There were 5 kids. I was the second child, but and the other 4 were sisters. But Mom, come Easter Sunday, whatever, again, typically Mom would always be making dresses for the girls then for, the Easter sunrise service. And again, Mom grew up in that area. Dad grew up in Kansas. So you had one of her brothers was, on a farm nearby. So holidays, we'd get together with family, grandma and grandpa, Mom's father and mother were nearby. So typically those were the easiest ones to get together with during holidays or during the cousins or our birthdays or whatever. So, but again, it was a great place. Even though you didn't realize what you didn't have, you never felt like you were missing anything because, again, it was just a great community. The community supported each other, So again, I consider myself blessed and very fortunate to have grown up on a farm like that.
So then you graduated high school, and I'm sorry, you mentioned your university. Where did you go?
So I graduated from high school, and again, not all of my high school classmates went off to college. A few of us did. And I probably didn't even know necessarily what I was going to do, or I didn't, 2 years before, I probably didn't have a plan for college, didn't think that would be, and didn't even think about it. But I went to a local college initially. It's got the distinction of known. There's probably two, if people are professional sports fans, of football, specifically football, it's a small college, but they did have 2 college players that did have success in the NFL. One was Don Beebe with the Buffalo Bills during their they made the Super Bowl several years in a row, never won it. But he was Don Beebe was known as this athlete, a wide receiver, tight end, I can't remember which, but he never gave up on a play. He just had this incredible work ethic. And the most recent one was Danny Woodhead, who, had a nice run, playing for the New England Patriots. So Chadron State College has, those are 2 personalities that claim to fame, so to speak.
Right.
But they have Marie Sandoz, the author, was raised, in that part of the country of Nebraska. So there's a Marie Sandoz Center at Chadron State College. But I eventually left there. I had and again, I don't know why. I'm happen to be a Christian, so I can sit back and say that I feel like God probably pulled me to the Washington, D.C. area. But I had a desire to go to Washington. I had an interest in government for some odd reason, because, wasn't born with wealth or prestige. So it's not like that's, what one would typically lean toward doing. But, I worked on Capitol Hill for 2.5 years. And again, as this wet behind the ears farm boy from Nebraska, it was just an exciting time for me. But after 2.5 years on Capitol Hill, I knew I wasn't, I knew that was not my calling.
Too honest to be in politics.
I couldn't do it.
Mr. Smith goes to Washington story here is developing.
So, but I knew I needed my education at that point to have the opportunities to, pursue something, which again, didn't necessarily know at that point, but I transferred to the University of Virginia, and again had a great 2 years, in the UVA's McIntire School of Commerce. It's one of the top undergrad business schools in the country, and I consider myself extremely fortunate to have been admitted and to have made it through. It's an intense, very good program.
Tight-knit alumni there. So as you're going through that and kind of realizing, okay, this is here, I still want to be here, I feel a call here, but not maybe in this direction. As you're in school for the second time, was there someone who inspired you towards the financial industry, or was there a fascination? What kind of pulled you here?
I think at that point, at Chadron State College, I wasn't sure. I think I had different major thoughts, major degrees, thoughts of what I could major in. And I think English was one of them at one time. I thought of maybe pre-law, business, political science. So I toyed with all those areas. After being out, after working on the Hill for a while, I knew that I felt like business, made sense. It'd be easier to get a job from that perspective. And I met some people, I knew some people in that 2.5 years that I was out who were accounting majors. And, you always heard that, again, it was easy to get a job. So I became an accounting major, there. And again, they had a good program. So I started my career out of with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and then.
Not a bad little firm to start
exactly.
with. I mean, if you're going to start in finance, you could start with the small guys. I see that.
But I think, again, you sit back and say that, I think, at that point, again, you and I are both entrepreneurs, and I think we both realize that, again, probably not everybody should go to college, and I think, again, for me, I'm fairly practical. Again, I didn't have an interest in, the, liberal arts or sociology or other, types of programs like that. Certainly wouldn't necessarily discourage somebody, but I think, any parent would want their kids to, find something that's practical. But in this day and age, again, I think in some respects, maybe less so today, but certainly there is a push to go to college. And I think in a lot of cases, a lot of colleges, it still is, let's, graduate and get a job with, that big company, versus the idea of go out and starting something on your own. And fortunately, I think a lot of universities do have developed more entrepreneurial types of programs that will encourage, young men and women to, again, consider creating something, building something from scratch. So, fortunately, more of that exists. But again, I think people people should examine their heart and see, what's right for them. And again, I think if I was a parent today with COVID, I might encourage my kid to take a gap year right now, because, getting the college experience is a good experience. And if, I just can't imagine being a kid, college kid and taking classes virtually. But, I think, so it'll be interesting to see what the college landscape, it's
been changing for a number of years now. And in some of the, core and anchor foundations educationally have, sadly closed their doors. So I, in the past, have been a speaker at finance conferences for NACUBO, which is a national association of CFOs for universities and colleges, and really their struggle to kind of find that that hybrid between still having that community, because the alumni you have with the university you attended that you were talking about is incredibly powerful for your entire career moving forward. So there's so much value to be said for those relationships and that time that you build as you're launching. But then there's also something interesting to be said for the ability to take things virtually and to be even involved internationally and globally in education and cultures. I've had the honor of speaking internationally lately, and even though it's virtual, it's interesting, like the last summit was organized out of Norway, and there's this different feel and culture, and I attended a networking group in Hawaii, and you just kind of, even though we're not there, you get some exposure to the people and the mindset and the way that they function, and it's fascinating. And I would love to see in our high school systems more of the incubator, startup, entrepreneur like space, because we have that now in for a resource and tools for these individuals who have these great ideas and want to pull this together. So now there are better collaborative resources for that. But won't it be exciting when it starts in high school? Because had I've been exposed to that, then I would have run with launching something of my own many years prior to the Gray showing. And it's been well covered, just so you know. And I also would have taken really, and that's mostly the college education I have. I wore off the bottoms of my shoes, and my success and achievements were my education for the most part. However, I did, once I was older, go back for strategic pieces. Like I got some really good education in the government contracting space and procurement. And I took workshops and classes that college offered, very targeted for what I was trying to to advance in, instead of the long drawn out, not that it isn't beautiful for the people who have masters and PhDs and amazing. I have complete respect for that. But for my journey, that was where I went. So we still haven't gotten exactly there. So you started in PricewaterhouseCoopers. Now where do we go?
So I spent my first several years in the accounting profession. Left PricewaterhouseCoopers to go into the corporate world. But after a defining moment in my life, unfortunately, I went through a divorce, and it gave me an opportunity just to kind of examine my life a little bit more. And I came to the conclusion that being a CPA wasn't doing anything for me. Again, CPAs do a valuable work. You've worked for some CPA firms, the work they do. And as a business owner, again, I value their feedback and input. But I felt like I wanted more of a hands-on, to make a more personal impact in people's lives. And I thought I had been exposed at that point to the financial services industry. And I thought maybe that would be something that I could do, would be good at. So it was somewhat accidental. I didn't grow up investing. I can remember the first exposure as a senior in high school. We did a little stock market game, and if I recall correctly, as a senior, that I think we had to. I think the teacher made us pick, 4 stocks or something, and after a short period of time, and I didn't learn anything from it, but I think if I recall correctly, I believe my portfolio did better than my other classmates. But
kind of got a pinch from the bug early on. It hop around in the background for a while, cooking slowly.
It had to have been. I don't know if that had, but it was kind of funny. One of the stocks I did buy was Dad had a pilot's license, so Cessna. I bought. I decided I'd buy Cessna just because Cessna didn't do too bad actually during that little 10-week run, but so I decided to go into financial services, and I thought that would be a way to again become more personally engaged in the goals and objectives of the people that I would serve. So my first 2 years, I worked for 2 different companies.
What year was that? So when did we start in financial services, roughly?
92 was when I left the CPA profession.
Okay.
So for the next 2 years, I worked for 2 different companies, and after 2 years, I said I actually was quite disappointed in the industry, and I came to basically a crossroads where I simply said I either must go back into the CPA profession, or I've got to figure out what this is, because I said I didn't like the conflicts of interest. I worked for these companies; they had their own products. We were incentivized to sell what the company wanted us to sell. I couldn't offer everything that I would have liked to have offered, but I got to that point where I just said, okay, either I have to figure this out on my own, or I'll go back in the CPA profession. At least in the CPA profession, I didn't feel that there was that conflict of interest.
Or that pressure, right?
Yeah, and that pressure, that actually.
This is a common conversation around your industry. So that pressure and how that works, because there's a couple of different options when you're working with the financial industry. So can you explain what some of those look like?
Well, now I'm gonna reach over here and grab something if you don't mind. So this is
right out of the boardroom, by the way. You see that background? He's reaching right out of the boardroom.
Yeah. So you see this?
Yes.
This is actually the reason that I started Bernhardt Wealth Management in 1994. It's obviously shovel. Now this is a never had been used shovel before, and I actually, when I was in the Shenandoah a couple of weeks ago, I went to some antique shops. I wanted to get a rusty.
Yeah, because you got a virgin shovel there, Mr. Gordon. I mean, that shovel has seen no work in its life.
Yep, that's right. But that shovel is really why I was dissatisfied, because I can remember as a kid, that Dad built an addition onto the house at one point, and he borrowed a neighbor's shovel. Now, keep in mind, when you're on a farm, you've got all these farm tools, and we had plenty of shovels, but the shovel he borrowed was different than any shovel that we had. But I remember seeing Dad, after he was done using that shovel, I remember seeing him wash that shovel off to get all the mud and dirt off of it. He'd take a steel brush, because that metal, gets rusted. A farmer has their shovel for, many years. So he would take a steel brush just to get, some of the rust off, and even sharpen the edge of the shovel before he returned it. And Mom was a similar thing. They both were, again, committed to doing the right thing. And always, if they borrowed something, anything they borrowed was always returned in a better condition. So for me, the shovel stands for, putting forth your best efforts, right, 100% of the time. And so I was at a point, again, when I was at this crossroads, I was at a point where I said, I know I could do a better job for my clients if I didn't have the restrictions that were placed upon me. So either I have to live within those restrictions, leave the profession, or try to start my own firm, and I didn't know anybody that had started their own firm, but I said, I got to the point where I said, well, let's give it a shot. Let's try to start my own firm. And again, that firms like us who are not part of a Wall Street firm, an insurance company, a bank, again, we legally have a fiduciary duty. So I define the fiduciary duty that people like I have to our clients as the clean, sharp shovel standard. Whereas the suitability standard, when I worked for those other companies, my obligation was only to recommend something suitable. And that simply meant, to me, the suitability standard is that dirty shovel. All Dad had to do was return a mud cake shovel. And if he had returned that mud cake shovel, he would have met his obligation. So there's nothing wrong with the suitability standard, but that's not how I was raised. So that's why I was dissatisfied. And that's why in 1994, then I started Bernhardt Wealth Management.
So a firm like yours, are you so completely unconnected to all of these other organizations, and you just simply act as a broker, so you know what's available, you can research what you feel is good and valuable, and then you really just pass that advice along? Am I understanding that correctly, or can you share us a little bit more of what it's like to work with you versus someone who is directly compensated and connected to those products?
So yeah, we're not tied to a firm. We do have a limited power of attorney for our clients. So versus telling our clients to go do this, that, and the other,
Sure.
Again, our clients are busy people. They have complex lives. So, if you think about just the times or the professionals I work with, sometimes they have to remind me, Gordon, I need you to do this. And so, so it is important to work with an advisor. So we have a limited power of attorney, for our clients' portfolios. It's set up at a separate custodian, so they get monthly statements, they get confirmations of everything that we're doing in their account. So we can then buy and sell. We agree upon a strategy. We can buy and sell, basically virtually any investment, that's appropriate for them. Because again, they're the boss. We're supposed to, again, design a plan that's in their best interests. And so every client's portfolio, may have slight differences just because of their time frame, their goals, and what's important to them.
And how have you, during some of the global changes, especially economically and in the world of finance, with so many of these companies closing their doors and pulling out employees and things, made those adjustments and met with your clients for strategic planning during something that obviously nobody expected to come our way?
Yeah, and actually in some respects, this is, we went through, so in my 26 years in business then, the first horrific market was the tech bubble, and the technology stocks were shooting. We're just going through the roof in the late 1990s. And by, March of 2000, they plummeted, and some tech stocks and tech indices fell about 80% in value. I think the S&P 500 fell about 40% in value. So again, that was a difficult time and an emotional time for investors. You went through, 12 years ago, 12, 13 years ago, the global recession, the financial crisis,
Yeah.
Where again, portfolios, took big hits. And during this pandemic was different. It was similar, but it was different because here you had, during this pandemic, you had, for one thing, the stock market fell faster than it had ever fallen. A bear market is defined as a 20% decline. So the market fell 20% in 16 days, and that's almost half the time that it took the stock market to fall that far during the Great Depression. So investors saw these, big declines in their portfolio. And again, if you're a more conservative investor, the decline wouldn't have fallen as much, but you still feel it. And the media, the hype of the media.
Yeah, that thing I think is worse. It's the energy and the mindset. I feel like actually can speak into being the problem. You say the economy is great. Everyone says, oh, the economy is great. Let's go buy something. And if you say, oh, be careful, the economy, and everyone stops buying stuff, and then you've made the economy worse.
That's true. And it's true. The media plays into building that fear or greed if things are going great, because again, even though a client's portfolio may not have, again, be as aggressive as, again, a 100% stock type of portfolio.
Sure.
But when you hear the doom and gloom in the media, you just feel like, oh, my portfolio must be hit hard too. But you had this big decline in the stock market. You had obviously concerns, about one's health. Will I keep my health? Will my loved ones keep my health? You had concerns about, will my company have to lay off people? Will I take a cut in pay? So, and if you got, if you're retired or approaching retirement, you've got, children, loved ones that are out in their careers, you're concerned about their well-being too. So you had, the recession, the health crisis, the stock market, you had this confluence of everything occurring at one time that we didn't see during the Great Recession. Was bad. The tech bust was bad, but to have that compounded, and then people were being shut in. People couldn't do the travel they wanted to do. So again, it was just, again, it was a difficult time for investors. And so the challenge for us was to keep our clients from making,
right,
the emotional decisions with their money.
One of the most powerful parts of the movie, there's many. My husband and I watch. We're sappy people. We watch It's a Wonderful Life every year.
Oh yeah, love it.
And one of the most powerful scenes that really impacted me was when everyone was running on the bank, and I forget the old guy's name. Someone can comment in YouTube and fuss at me and tell me his name. But Potter, right? Because Potter's that's what it was. Potter. I got it eventually.
I was going to say Harry Potter, but that's a different character.
No, different show,
different show. But yeah, Mr. Potter.
Them sitting face to face and saying, okay, those of us who keep our heads, those are the people that are going to come out on top, because historically, you have to look at it. It goes in waves and flows. Real estate goes in waves. Things are always going to go in waves and flows, and you just got to keep calm and keep yourself together. And I loved the concept of those people coming to him and saying, okay, to get through, I can get through with, $15.32. That'll make me through. And then I'll come out on the other side and everything will turn around. And so one of the things I'm wondering is, I love that you're talking about the issue as in past tense, because I feel like that means we really are coming around. Things are starting to shape back up again. I think people are starting to get hired again in different ways, and people are making some adjustments as far as corporations and their employees. I even do see a lot of hiring coming through and trending. So do you feel like from the financial space that we're starting to get our legs again and some stability and moving back towards the positive?
It certainly feels that way, but at the same time, keep in mind that, again, we're strong advocates that no one has a crystal ball.
Sure.
You could sit back. I know there's a lot of people that sit back and say, I don't understand how the stock market has recovered as much as it has. Well, and it has certainly. But again, the key is that the market is actually forward thinking. So it doesn't worry necessarily about the news, that you expect to come out today. It's thinking what's going to happen in 3 months or 6 months. So it's already kind of thinking, well, based upon if that's happening, because again, keep in mind that if, when I think of some past conversations with clients, for example, when the government was being shut down at one point, and then, a conversation with clients says, hey, the market, we know the government's going to shut down. So maybe we should get out of the market now, because when that happens, the market will fall. Well, and again, my conversation is the market knows that. Something, the market knows it. The market's already priced that information in. So you can't outsmart the market. So the best thing an investor can do, again, given still there's tremendous uncertainty. What would happen if, COVID spikes up? Some people say it will. I don't know. And if there are additional layoffs, who knows? So, but the things that people must remember is that, one, it does highlight the importance. Every investor should have their cash reserves, so that there's serious money they don't need to tap into. And then their serious money, it should be based upon the fact, if I'm 33 years old, and I've got that money in the 401k, if it goes down 30%, 40%, when I'm 65, that's going to be just a blip. I won't even see that decline in the market, because, I can guarantee you that in 10 years, the market's going to be significantly higher than it is today, most likely. So, but I don't know, I can't make that same guarantee, over the next 3 months or the 12 months, because it's almost a coin toss of what's going to happen. So investors, need to keep their, have the appropriate allocation for them, be globally diversified. And when the market falls, there's opportunities to shift money around and take advantage with the same dollars that you have, to take advantage of these, these downturns, or when the market does recover again, to again get back to the original allocations. So keeping our emotions in check is, that's the most difficult part of our job. It's easy to manage money. It's easy to prepare a financial plan and tell a client, hey, this is what you need to do to meet this objective. But it's when things get tough, and we're sitting there counseling, holding hands, and advising them, what should we do? And again, and we're confessing that we don't know what's going to happen in the next 3 months, 6 months, or a year. But it's always great and gratifying when I look back on those past, volatile markets. It's always neat to have the conversations with the nervous clients and sit back and say, Gordon, again, what you guys told us, we owe you, big time. You saved our financial lives. You saved our legacy, and that's extremely gratifying. That makes what we do, worth it, going through these difficult times.
Yeah, I have to tell you, from the exposure I've had from you and your team, I'm a big fan of Ben. Ben, you're getting a shout out. You knew that was coming, right? Because bensthebomb.com. I love Ben. But you have a fantastic team, and I would absolutely say that if you hadn't thought about it before, and take a look at what you're doing with your finances, and consider having a sit-down conversation with Gordon and his team to see if you might do things differently, if there might be a better fit for you. Is there anything else that we didn't cover events-wise, or things that are coming up specifically with working with you and how your services work? Before we start talking a little bit, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how Profiles in Success was born.
Sure.
But before we get into that, is there anything we haven't really covered from the wealth management space that you wanted to share?
I'll probably just share that again. I think that, if some of your listeners, for example, are, stock pickers, that's not us. Again, the people we enjoy working with, most of our clients are people who, again, have money, certainly, but they understand what's important in life. And in the end, money is a tool. Money does not buy happiness. Again, I'm glad I have it. I'm glad that it affords me to be able to do some of the things I want to do. But, the things that are important for, again, the business owners or CEOs who are still there, if they're retired, It's their career, it's their business, it's their employees, it's their clients, it's their family, it's the causes that are important to them. If what we can do is take their complex lives and help simplify it, create a plan for them, work with the other outside professionals, and then free up their time to focus on the things that are important to them, they're going to have a much more rewarding life. And that's where things of legacy are built, is by letting them make huge impacts in those areas. And again, delegate this day-to-day stuff to some of the things that we can do. So again, that's one of the things that I love.
Well, and see, and I'm very passionate about and love the idea of the legacy of wealth and having something really foundational and powerful for my children, because I'm the mother of 7, so I've got a lot. And then also really to make an impact for a cause that has longevity, that will be there long after my children's children are gone, that continues to support something. So the idea of creating legacy is a really powerful, we only have we're a blink on this planet, and if we can make an impact many generations after we're gone, I think we've done something good. And resources are always needed. Money isn't everything, but resources are always needed. So I think that in itself is also makes your industry and what you do incredibly powerful and important. Now, I would love for us to talk about the history. I mean, you're up to 16 volumes now, I think, maybe 17, or started the 17.
Yeah.
This Profiles in Success, executive leaders in the Washington, D.C. area has really, I mean, we're close to 600 maybe or more, 600 plus?
650 around there someplace. Yeah.
Alumni. I'm going to call them alumni because I'm a fellow and I'm excited. So hello out there, all the fellow alumni of Profiles in Success. Tell us the story of how that started and why.
Well, Profiles of Success, so it's what is probably going on year 11, maybe 12, for sure 11, if not 12, I think. So you can sit back and say again, in my world, in your world, the value that coaching has, right? Again, business owners, sales professionals, you name it. It's always helped.
Supporting, all of that. We need that. We need that person who is just above us or even parallel with us, because they've had different experiences that could help us succeed quicker and vice versa. We don't all have to have, everyone says, oh, you got to fail to succeed, but we don't all have to have the same failures and covered in the same bruises. We could save each other from a few.
So again, I was going through some, a coaching program for people in my industry. And one of the things they talked about was niche, because at that point you could look back on my business and we had a diverse, group of clients, and it's natural. It's going to happen naturally because, somebody's neighbor refers us to it. Their neighbor may not, do the exact same thing, but they've heard good things about us. And so they reach out to us. And so you do develop a diverse, client base typically. But, so I started examining, okay, what kind of niche, if I was to focus my efforts in an area, what area would it be? And I was introduced to a radio show. And what I liked about the radio show was that it actually very briefly, just talked about, again, some of those defining moments, what led that CEO, what led that entrepreneur to where they were. So I was intrigued by it, but I realized it wasn't really right for me because the radio show was such a brief moment. And I'm a relationship guy. I have to have, basically that long-term, that deep relationship, that connectedness. And you don't build that in a 12-minute, 10 or 12-minute, radio interview. So I decided to do, then a follow-up interview, and spend 60 or 90 or 120 minutes with an individual and ask questions. Let them share their story. Let them talk about the things that are important to them. Let them share again what, if as you recall, one of my favorite questions is to describe an object of great personal importance. And you talked about your daughter having made a quilt, or what'd she make? I forget right now. A scarf or quilt or
Yes,
something.
it was the scarf that we did with a group of children in our
Yep.
club. So it really speaks to my life mission, and the power of how I feel like social media should be used for good.
That's exactly. And what her classmates, what you did, what they did to give those to kids of need. So that's an interesting question, and you learn a lot about an individual, by a question like this. So you have these heartfelt discussions, and I started to learn the power of story, and I'm clearly, and I'm probably, I'd still consider myself a rookie, but I'm better than many at it, at least at helping somebody else with their own story. And I'm probably horrible at my own story, but that's something I want to get better at. But I realized there that by being authentic, by being vulnerable, by sharing these defining moments, that those are the things that are going to stand out to, a prospective employee, a prospective customer, possible teaming partners. Those types of, again, vulnerable stories will connect, and it can become a business, tool for them to again share their story. So it started off as a way to, basically build, an opportunity to kind of focus on building a niche, and that's grown into Profiles and Success. And so I consider myself very blessed in the sense that I have my teammates are phenomenal, inside the wealth management practice here. But I'm also then blessed, we're blessed to serve our clients' wealth management needs, but I'm also blessed in to work with people like you to, again, hear their story, help them leverage their story, share their story, make it available in books or online, so that hopefully, and especially with what we're going through today, I think, young people, again, college kids, people struggling in business, doesn't matter. I think there's power to reading, other inspirational, successful stories. And some people, will say, well, I'm not a success yet, but that's fine. Where you are today, yeah, you want to be further down the road, but somebody's going to connect to that. Let's face it, not many of us are going to be able to relate to George Soros or Donald Trump or Mitt Romney, because of the wealth they have. That's not the background that we have, but we can relate more to the person that grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, the immigrant that came here with, a few bucks in his or her pocket, the woman who, again, shattered a glass ceiling because, again, where, she was being told you're never going to, get past a certain level. Those are inspirational stories, and we need to share more of those stories. So it's fun for me to, again, help people leverage that story and, again, and address the wealth management needs for our clients.
And where do you see that series evolving? Because I have some thoughts on that. Are you privy to share any of those ideas, or we're going to expand that at some point? Let's hope.
Yeah, I'm still working on that, Jessica, and that's I value certainly feedback from you. I know COVID, I've basically put down. I haven't done any events, obviously, with COVID, and just taking 2020, just kind of take a year back and just to reflect. We're going to be creating a podcast soon, so that will, I think be another way to help share inspirational stories.
So stay tuned for who knows, some great things may be happening with this Profiles and Success series, and look out for an amazing podcast, because I definitely think you're going to do fantastic with that as well. You also have that good, nice voice for a podcast. I was in radio for a little while, and so now one of the things that you do cover when you're in this, before we move on to the amazing causes, and the list is a mile long, people. He really loves causes. They all pretty much, I believe, in their stories share a transition point or a challenge they had to face personally or professionally. Is there one that stands out to you that you think you could share that would help inspire someone else, and kind of how you got through it to the other side?
So, a challenge you're saying, is that what?
Yeah, some sort of challenge or issue you had to face either personally or professionally that you feel like you've come back on the other side, so you're here to thrive and tell people that it's all right, there is a light, you can make it.
Yeah. Again, I think there's some incredible people that have overcome so much more than I have, but we all have our challenges, and I'm glad that I haven't faced some challenges that I know other people have.
Yeah, right, me too.
But I know that from a standpoint, when I started the company in 1994, then, again, this had been, so I left the CPA profession, keep in mind, in 1992, worked for two different companies. So that means this was basically the third change in 2 years. And, basically, I was depleting my resources because I didn't have a lot at that point. But I was committed to making it happen. And again, I'm thankful again for the work ethic that I got on the farm. Had I not had that work ethic, I probably would have failed. But I probably financed my credit card. I financed my business once I depleted my resources. I was basically living on credit cards for a while. And finally, 6 years later, I think I finally started saving into my IRA again and started becoming more of a disciplined saver. And so it was a difficult time in those early years, but I took the perspective of almost burn the bridges behind you, so to speak, because I knew that I didn't want to give myself an avenue to basically just quit and do something else. So I basically was steadfast in just plodding ahead.
There's a couple of famous leaders, and again, I don't have them on the tip of my tongue. My husband told me about them, and they actually, one goes back to Greek and one goes back to somewhere else, but they said, burn the ships, because we are winning this war. We are moving ahead. There's no going back, guys. Burn the ships. So he took the burn the ships approach, and I love that is, make a way, move forward and make a way. And that's the determination you need, I think, to be self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
So now one of my favorite reasons for founding Profound Professionals is not just to feature these amazing individuals, but also the causes they care about. So outside of work and all the other amazing things you're doing professionally in your industry, can you share with us just a few of the causes you care about and why they are exciting for you?
And I'm gonna, if you don't mind, Jessica, I'm gonna share one more little story, and then I'll add that. Do you remember this?
It's the shell.
It's a scallop shell.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and this kind of confirms again why I think that, again, why money is a tool, and we, in this day and age, I think it's so important for us to be grateful. But in 2018, I had the pleasure of being able to walk for 35 days, 618 miles on the Camino de Santiago. There's several paths. This is an ancient pilgrimage. And so it's in Spain. I started in France, walked across northern Spain, and there are different routes. But it was by far the best experience of my life to basically just to get up. My job for those 35 days was basically to get up every morning, pack my backpack, find some food along the way, walk here from village to village, find a bed, wash my clothes, eat dinner someplace, and you'd repeat that, and you realize on that journey, you realize how little we really need and the importance we place on other things. Again, I have a nice house,
the rain shower and the body jets and the
exactly.
takes a different meaning when you're washing up in the creek or the pond or wherever.
It teaches you to be grateful, thankful, and there were just so many lessons. And so actually in 2021, we'll actually be publishing a book. I don't know what I'll call it yet, but it'll talk about some of my insights, on my Camino. And I think again, it'll be something that, that I think just those little gems that one can walk away with and just, again, have a little bit more gratitude and gratefulness in the life that we do have. So we do have a lot to be thankful for. In terms of causes, again, we always have an annual tradition of donating to causes. I have served on some boards of some charities, but I'm not currently, because again, there's a lot of worthy causes, and we should all support causes that mean things to us. I tend to basically gravitate toward causes that are military themed or youth themed, or even senior citizen themed. So I try to we give our clients a list of 5 charities that says we'll be glad to write a check to one of these 5. But then if they want us to send a check to a cause that's important to them, and it could be American Cancer Society or the American Heart Association, whatever it is. So, again, I just encourage everybody to support our worthy causes. And I know that these, again, a lot of local charities are hurting today, during this pandemic too. So they need our help just as much.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to tell you, you had a beautiful list of them that you shared with me. And what I'll make sure I do is include the links for all of those and brief descriptions and missions and visions in the description of the YouTube video, as well as in the article. I feel the same way, that that's part of why I launched the show, that just the awareness of different causes out there that we just have no idea exist are really good, because you never know that what someone might be inspired to either instill in their own community, or start, or become a part of, or volunteer or give to, just because we shared about it here. So we will definitely list some specific ones, and just know that Gordon is one of the most giving and kind people I have met, and everyone I have met that knows him has the same things to say about him, that you have really made an impression of just genuine kindness and support and generosity. And I think that's a fantastic it's a fantastic way to live, and I'm very grateful for it. I'm also grateful for all of you being kind enough to spend the time with us and watching this interview and learning more about this really profound man that I have had the pleasure to know. And so do with action what you know you should: like, share, and comment, so someone else might be inspired by this story. If you know a profound professional that you'd like to be featured here, reach out to me and let's talk about it. Before we completely say goodbye, I warned Gordon I'm going to put him on the hot seat. I like for my guest to share one last thing with you before we say goodbye. And usually it's a quote or a book or just some sort of exercise or practice that you've done daily in your life, personally or in business, that you feel like has made a powerful impact on your journey to success. So what do you got for us, Gordon?
Well, I think in this day and age, it's so important to have a grateful heart and to look for the positive in everything. So despite, and again, my heart goes out to the families who have experienced a loss, or due to COVID or anything else during this time, because again, you just haven't been able to touch. So, but even regardless, I would say look for things to be thankful for and grateful for, and if we can do that, that helps us, I think, keep a more positive mindset, in life and with our own family and those that we love. And clearly, I think in this time too, it's being positive around those that we love, being encouraging. That's a big blessing that you're giving to them.
Yeah, I think gratitude is such a high energy frequency. It's such a positive and powerful. You can almost feel that energy even through, hopefully, the computer screen, right, and the Zoom. My husband for a while carried, and I think still from time to time does, a smooth stone in one of his pockets. And it was to remind him to reflect on his blessings and the mindset of gratitude. So I want to thank you all again. This has been Profound Professionals, and until the next one, we'll see you there. Take care of yourself. Remember that you are very important and so very special. So, and you're not alone. We're all here for you. So thank you, Gordon, again for being with us. And I'm Jessica Koch, and this was Gordon Bernhardt. And we're going to see you next time on Profound Professionals. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Jessica.